if you're working a 12-hour shift, washing up dishes, can you find it in yourself on the 13th hour to go and make music? But if I consider myself a musician, how much time am I actually giving to being a musician? That's 10 years for her to become an overnight success. I've been on stage at the Grammys with Adele and received my first Grammy. Nothing changed. It's not like I just sit at home now polishing the Grammy and feeling amazing.
Hi, I'm Alex Brees, founder of Unheard Music, and welcome to Find Your Frequency, the podcast where we talk to people who have built something from nothing, whether that's artists, founders, investors, all united by the same obsession. How do you get people to care? And today we're recording live from South by Southwest London, and I'm incredibly excited to have Fraser T. Smith joining us. Fraser, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
And I actually wrote an introduction for you, but I'm blown away when I'm reading it back, to be honest with you. So I'm going to call out a couple of things. One is produced Stormzy's Gang Signs and Prayer. One is co-wrote Set Fire to the Rain. And in fact, I saw a little bit of content that you put out where you welcome people into your studio and you played it on the piano. And it's one of those moments where you go, oh my gosh, what a cultural impact you've had. Dave, Kano, Florence and the Machine, Samson, the list goes on. So, Fraser, I'm incredibly honoured and privileged to have you here today.
Well, it's great to be here, and it's a lovely full circle moment in that you've been part of my journey as well with my band Future Utopia, and you've been really part of that. So it's lovely to come on and always following what you guys are doing. It's very inspirational.
Thank you. And this is an unusual way to start, but I've heard you tell a few jokes. I've heard you tell
here and there.
I've heard you tell. I was listening to some content. I think you're on the tour bus and you told a joke when you kindly invited us to your place to listen to 12 Questions. I think we sat at the dinner table and you told a joke there.
Oh, really?
Is joke something that you're part of? Have you got a joke that springs to mind now?
Give me a subject and I'll see what we've got in the locker.
Why don't we go with music?
Music? You'd think I'd have like a million. I've got more funny stories. Plus, there's so many different. We're doing a gig tomorrow night at a brewery here at South by Southwest, and there's a drum riser for our drummer. Now, this isn't the case with our drummer, but with most drummers, like, how do you know that the drum riser, where the drums go on top of? How do you know when the drum riser is level? How do you know?
Ooh. It's not using a spirit level or anything like that.
No, because the drummer dribbles out of both sides of his mouth at the same time.
That's great.
Not our drummer, so I'm not insulting my guy Sweets on drums there, but
that's brilliant. And thank you for humouring me on that. I think I wanted to start in that way. I also love cheesy jokes. Can I tell you one too?
Yeah, what have you got?
So what do you call an American bee?
American bee? No. What?
A USB.
It's
bad, isn't it? It's bad. But Fraser, as part of this podcast, what we try and do is give a little bit of a journey. Our audience is sort of artists, managers, labels, people in tech, people in music. So can we go all the way back? Can we go back to your sort of origin story, pre-Craig David, if you like? And how did you come about being, I guess, interested in music and then go on to essentially become an expert in your field?
I remember going over to South London to my nan's house and hearing her play the piano. She was a pianist in the bars and the clubs. When back in that day when like most houses, like not even like working class houses, would always have, instead of a television, they'd have a piano. People would literally gather around the piano and play. So usually be someone there. And so my nan was self-taught, and she used to go into like the bars and the clubs and the social clubs playing piano and playing like stride piano and rhythm and blues piano, which was just amazing. And self-taught, she was like a virtuoso. So I remember seeing her play and then just messing around on the piano and just feeling like just getting completely lost in it and absorbed. And I think that when you find that with something so young, sticks with you, something that where the time slips away I was then introduced, like my dad had a guitar in the house and played that a little bit like a double bass because it was too big for me to play, and then eventually got bought for one Christmas a guitar and just fell in love with the guitar in the same way, and just used to like the frequency that you could produce and just the sounds coming off it. I was just drawn in, and I think going back to that early point where you just lose track of time, I think that's it's a good barometer of whether something is, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back at it, it's something that is like you marvel at. That word marvelous is interesting because it's actually, when you trace it back to what it means, you break it down, like to marvel at something, to just be, filled with awe at something. And I remember going to the local guitar shop in High Wycombe, and, it's a small shop, but as a kid, and my granddad used to take me, and I just see all these guitars on the wall. It just used to blow my mind, just thinking, wow, like the possibilities of like what these different kinds of guitars, like the sounds they could make. And so, I just, that started my obsession with music from a young age.
It's interesting because I draw parallels to some of the things you were saying there when it comes to, I'm building on hurd, it's something I'm passionate about. And people say, oh, you're working all the time, do you not need a break? But actually, I think when you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work. No. You just completely get immersed in it. Yeah.
Doesn't feel like you ever work a day in your life, really, does it?
No.
You may do the long hours, but separating that feeling, I think, where I really feel, I travel around the country on tour or seeing friends, and, you can see people in jobs that they really are not loving doing. And that's the majority of people's existence. Yeah. They're looking for that thing that they love. So both you and I, I know you don't take it for granted. I certainly don't, where I just wake up feeling very grateful every day for this.
Gratitude is, that's one of the things that I say to everyone. I try and carry with me all the time.
I feel you have that about you.
Yeah, you can get lost in it, can't you? You can get, people say, oh, I recognise unheard, or I recognise you, and your ego can maybe grow. But I think if you just carry the gratitude to say, you know what, I'm really grateful that you can see what we're doing and that we get given this opportunity to do something we love. Gratitude's so important.
It is.
When did you think that, because a lot of people, I guess, become passionate about, performing or playing an instrument, and they become very good at it. Not many people can do that as a career, and it's especially a career that you've had. When did that become a realization that perhaps I can do this, people will pay me to do it, I can do this for a living?
It's interesting because it wasn't, I think because music has always been such a dominant force in my life that I didn't ever contemplate doing anything else, but I also didn't have any contacts. So it was a bit like, well, I know that I'm going to be doing music. However, I'm just going to find a way. And I didn't know how. This was pre-YouTube. There wasn't things that you could just Google for this. So it was like, I just had to put all my faith in that and work, as a lot of musicians do, in a variety of very lowly paid, terrible jobs, and just, I say to people sometimes, I mentor young people on an academy that I have, for the Future Producer Academy, for 16 to 24-year-olds all around the UK from challenging backgrounds, and I say that, sometimes it's not about that moment where you kind of turn pro. It's actually more about the way that if you're working a 12-hour shift, washing up dishes, as I would be regularly doing, can you find it in yourself on the 13th hour to go and make music? Because you're like, otherwise I'm washing up dishes, which is nothing wrong with that. But if I consider myself a musician, how much time am I actually giving to being a musician? And if you can find it in yourself at that last hour where you're like, that you find something within you that then carries forward. So it was just a question of like, how can I do this? And then through doing the challenging jobs, finding a little gig here or there, or a little something, guitar lessons, I was teaching guitar, to balance up where I could feel like, okay, at one point it's 100% washing dishes or cleaning football changing rooms, then it may be like 90% dishes, 10% music, to the point where actually if you just keep going, then it's just 100% music, no dishes to be washed apart from my own and my wife's, which is it's a good place to be.
It's true.
And I'll just keep that ratio going. And every sort of year that goes by, I'm like, we're still, the ratio's right.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great. I actually enjoy washing dishes and hoovering. That's my role in the house. It's very cathartic, I think.
Yeah.
And you touched on something there which I think is interesting, is saying yes. Because I think, and saying yes to as much as possible at the early stages. And I think that applies to, again, being an entrepreneur or building something is, I remember I was saying yes to anything and everything. Even if I was getting paid £100 or £50 or nothing, just showing up and networking. And actually, that's a lesson I'd love to sort of share, because that led us, one story that I've told before is that I went to Saudi Arabia to this conference, middle of nowhere, didn't really want to go, but I was like, do you know what? Let's go see who's there. Sat down in the desert, and a woman came and sat next to me who had actually just sold her business to SoundCloud. And then a couple of days later, she invested in hurd. She brought in her network. And, that for me is the power of saying yes. What was there a moment where, you got to a point where you had said yes to something and it was a bit of a tipping point? I know you said that it's more gradual, but you said yes to something, maybe the expectation was quite low for that thing you said yes to, but it opened up a door where you're like, wow,
Like all the time, like I relate to that journey of just saying yes. And but when you said that, I immediately thought about working with Kano at the very beginning, who was very much like, to me, like I met him when he was 17 and he just felt like a superstar, from what he was wearing to his approach to, we wrote our first song, Typical Me, at my flat in Acton. And then I went to see him play live, and Tinchy Strider was supporting him. And I just thought Tinchy is like the underdog. He didn't have Kano's star potential, but he had star potential in another way. But it felt like he wasn't necessarily as naturally gifted, let's say, as Kano. And he was supporting Kane. I could see a lot of talent in Tinchy. And he wanted to work. And so we worked actually with Kano on the first song that the three of us made, was a song called Strider Math. And then I could see his vision, and I could tell that he really wanted commercial success, and I was well placed to, I think, understand what that would have taken at that time to get him played on the radio, which is what he wanted. And so we then got together with Tyler Cruz and made a song called Take Me Back, which went to number 2 in the charts. And then we got in the studio with Dappy, and that's when we wrote the song Number One, and that was my first number one, his first number one. So Dappy's first number one, I think. So that was just an amazing, you could look at it and say, well, there's plenty of other examples of wilder sort of bets. But I mean, it definitely, from the outset, it wasn't written on the wall that Tinchy was going to be like an artist that had like multiple number ones.
And you said something there that was interesting, is you recognised Kano had that star potential. What is that? Is that something that you get a feeling for when that person's in the room? They're sort of magnetic and they are innovative in their approach? Or, is there a formula for that sort of thing, do you think?
There's a formula, but I think that every great artist I've ever worked with, from Adele, Celine Dion to Brittany, to Kano, to Stormzy, to Dave, all of these amazing artists have a clear vision of what they want. And I think you could, to put it into your realm, in terms of entrepreneurs, that you have a clear vision for what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that if you were to sit down with a mentor or someone in the same industry, or someone that was older in a different industry, you would be able to translate that vision to them, and they would be able to understand that. And I think that every great artist that I've worked with has just had a vision.
Yeah.
I mean, with Tinchy, it wasn't so much a creative vision, but I could tell that from an entrepreneur point of view, I could tell where he wanted to elevate himself to, and he was very willing to let us, with his input, but help shape the project creatively, whereas someone like Kano would be very not prescriptive, because he allows all his collaborators to bring what they bring in, but would know, like the typical me, he wanted a guitar track and it was a certain type of guitar track. Stormzy said, look, my life feels like, on one hand, like gang signs because of the, you know, the gangs around South London, but also prayer in terms of like my devotion and my Christianity. And I said, well, gang signs and prayer sounds like the most amazing title, and that the gang signs can be the bass lines and the drums. That can be like a South London sound or an East London or a North London, a London sound. And then the prayers can be the natural orchestration that we can use, and the organs and strings and the choirs. So Stormzy has an amazing vision, and so does Dave, and all great artists. Adele knew exactly what she wanted out of our session when we wrote Set Fire to the Rain. Not again in a prescriptive way, but knew she wanted something that felt quite rhythmic and quite not a typical ballad. Yeah. And so she was able to express that.
And do you feel pressure? Because I'm thinking the names that you named there, you know, they all come with a level of expectation as well, I guess. And you know, you're expected to be that creative collaborator, someone who can bring it all together. Do you feel the pressure of that ever when you get into the studio, or how do you create an environment perhaps where everyone can come together and be their creative selves in the best way possible?
I think it's about creating a safe space. You know, feeling like there's not too many people in the studios. I've worked in so many different studios that I've learned from things that have worked and things that haven't. You know, and it can sometimes be, for me, like the things that maybe some younger producers wouldn't think about, like, have you got lots of nice tea in the studio?
Yeah.
You know, it's a simple thing, but if you get there and you think it's a really nice cup of tea, and it's you know, you've got the ginger, for fresh ginger and lemon maybe for the artist, and this, I'm not talking about some sort of bougie situation, you know, I'm talking about, you know, getting some ginger is so cheap, and some lemons, you know, just some little things where artists can come in and they can feel seen. You know, it's not like I don't drink Red Bull, but imagine if I just drank Red Bull and I'm like, well, I just drink, so that's all we've got. You know, you're okay with Red Bull? You'd be like, I sort of want a ginger tea, or whatever the thing is. And I think, so it's creating that safe space and feeling like, well, being empathetic to the artist and being, you know, listening to them and realizing that ultimately, like, we're all one person at the end of the day. We're all going to be feeling levels of anxiety or tired or pissed off or happy, you know. And I think whoever the artist is, like, you can just relate, because there's always going to be something that you can. I think music is a wonderful touchstone. So I've been able to work with like artists that are a lot younger than me through music, because there'll always be something. You know, if you ask enough questions, there will be, you know, if not your football team, but the fact that, like, I'm not from South London, but my mum grew up in Streatham. So for lots of the rappers that came from South London, like with Kano, we bonded over the fact that we had a love for the UK garage, you know, and understood like how grime fitted in with all of that. You know, it could be that I'm with Serge from Kasabian, we're both big Leicester fans. You know, there's always something that draws you, because we're all human. You know, it could be just you both into a same kind of film, or you've watched a Netflix documentary, and it just comes from like communication. I think once you have that, then you're bonding over something, and it's not strategic to try and like get the win. It's just like, for me, I'm more process driven. I'm more thinking about, did I have the nicest day where we really like pushed each other, and then from then on it's like out of your hands really what happens with the track.
In a way, that answer fills me with excitement, and it's so refreshing to hear, because working in the tech world where things are becoming less and less human, you know, AI, whether it's generative or non-generative, building a platform where you want to create scale so you don't need people, that juxtaposes somewhat who I am as a person, you know. And actually what I see working within business, but generally speaking, is the human element. You know, is like being empathetic, being interested and curious, and fostering really strong connections. You know, even in the music world, if I think about when I foster a strong connection with an artist, it's when I see them live. You know, when I saw you perform as Future Utopia at our Great Escape. I think I can mention that here, but at our Great Escape show that we did a few years back, I connected, and I'd already connected. We'd met a few times and done quite a lot of work together, but I truly connected. Same when I saw St. John perform, or Dave, or whoever it might be. And so how do you think we bring that back a little bit in a world where people are creating music faster than ever? We're maybe losing a little bit of what music is about. How do we bring that back?
I don't know if it's like necessarily about bringing it back. I think that you said something really interesting there, in that you're finding that human interaction is really important in business again. I think if you're not interested in human connection, then you could be replaced by AI. And if you're not interested in making human music, then just Suno or another app is just gonna sort of eradicate you. So I think that AI has actually been a really positive thing for the creative community, because I think what it does is separate the great artists from the good artists. And it's not that the good artists can't be great, but everyone's looking around going, well, how can I make music that sounds more human? How can I take the auto-tune off? How can I play not to the grid and not so it sounds really computerized and robotic? And that's amazing. And then we have a host of amazing artists. Like, I'm just thinking back to 2 weeks ago, I was at the Ivor Novellos Awards with K Tempest and CMAT and Lola Young and Tom York and Elton John and Sam Fender and Rosalia and Damon Albarn. Yeah. And these are all very, very human artists. And Harry Styles, who are making very human music and selling out stadiums. So I don't know if there's anything that necessarily needs to be done. It's just the proof of the pudding is like that people want to go and see that music.
Yeah. And do you think that good music, great artists, great personalities, do you think they'll rise to the top? I'm just thinking about artists listening to this who are creating awesome music, but they haven't quite cut through yet. Is it for them just about being consistent and it'll happen, do you think? And their personality will come through, they'll build a community of people who fall in love with what they do? Or do you think there has to be a little bit of nuance for artists coming through now and cutting through the noise?
I think the only nuance would be to look at each step and be honest with yourself in terms of how you're doing. I don't mean from a numbers point of view, but just being really brutal with yourself. Yeah. But I think the consistency is super important. I mean, I was earlier today, we were chatting about this. I did a masterclass and I looked at Ray's song that I co-wrote and worked on with Ray and Camille Purcell, Please Don't Touch. And I was looking at the date, when that came out, just 2019. And then I looked up when Ray released her first piece of music. I think it was 2014. So I was there at the round about the beginning of Ray's career. We had a track called Decline with Mr. Easy. And we had written a lot of songs. I know that's well documented, but I mean, just in terms of like the level of the stuff that got released, there was so much stuff which didn't get released. I'm not going to dwell on the negative aspect of that because Ray's done it herself. But what I mean to say is that Ray's work ethic is, and I'm sure always will be, crazy. And the fact that if we say, well, when was the point? If Ray first started releasing music, I don't know how many years before she started writing music, but let's say even if we're conservative, we take the point where she released the first piece of music, which is 2014, and you go, when was the point where you could say she broke through globally? Should we say 2024? Yeah. That's 10 years for her to become an overnight success. Yeah. So I think that must give everyone hope that that's the kind of journey. Yeah. And actually I think nowadays we live in a society which is way kinder and it's less ageist. So I think you could feel years ago artists feeling slightly anxious about becoming 25 or 26 and not being famous. But the very fact that, I mean, Lola Young is still young, but she's been doing it 10 years. Charlie XCX, they're not 16-year-olds.
Yeah. And there's something beautiful about the journey. I know it's
beautiful.
cliche, isn't it? But you learn so much in that journey. And I know, again, just speaking personally, is there are certain... I've learned so... It's been challenging, for sure. I've learned so much now that I'll just continue to take forward, and eventually we'll get to the position we want to. But you have to go through those ups, those downs. They are what make you who you are. They make you the resilient person. They make you the person who can share information, such that actually there's a good value exchange between you and someone else because you've lived it, you've learned it. So I think that journey is so important.
I think the journey is everything.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, what you said I agree with, and we all put our goals out to this, and I do it as well, but I just have to remind myself that at that mythical point, nothing changes. So I've been on stage at the Grammys with Adele and received my first Grammy. Nothing changed. I mean, obviously I was hugely grateful in that moment. I'm still grateful to this day, of course, that Adele chose to come in with me and we wrote this amazing song. But it's not like I just sit at home now polishing the Grammy and feeling amazing.
Yeah.
I'm hungrier than ever.
Yeah.
Not because I have a lack of Grammys or self-esteem that I need to keep like charging that thing, but I'm just so excited by music and I'm so energized by it that it's to have a whole new set of goals. I have a set of goals for like young people, for the academy, and so that creates its whole set of new, let's not say problems, but like challenges. And actually, I think as humans, they've done studies into the brain which says that we're hardwired to work things out, which is a little bit of a problem with ChatGPT and Google, and because we're experiencing digital dementia, which is we're not using our brains to the full capacity. So therefore, we should always want challenges. And it's not necessarily just reframe them to challenges, not problems. And I want to be challenged to the day I die, because that's what I'm here for. I'm not here for like being on the desert island going, I've made it. And you actually see it with a lot of people where they work all their life for this point where they can say, no, I'm going to retire. And someone says, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm going to play golf every day. And then they have a heart attack because it's like, it's almost as if the responsibility has been taken away from them. I live as you do with a massive sense of purpose. I don't think that's ever going to disappear.
And it's going back to that gratitude piece, isn't it? Because we're so lucky, thinking back to people who are in jobs maybe that they don't enjoy, is that they're maybe not having that sense of, regardless of how tough the challenge is, that sense of challenge and being able to keep the mind active and keep moving forward. So again, I think it comes back to that gratitude piece really, is like holding on to that, making sure you are challenging yourself and moving with purpose, I think is really important. And I want to be a little bit selfish now. And actually, before I do that, is I think another skill that you have that I'm just observing now, if I may, is away from all of the music talent, is you've made me feel like really relaxed and at ease. And I don't know if it's the tone or your approach, or you're so used to, kind of dealing with people and having to try and make people.
That's like, I like chatting, I've always gotten really well. And so, that's good though.
And I think that's something that, I'd like to think the artists feel the same. Immediately they feel comfortable and relaxed, and it's a softer skill rather than a hard skill, but one that and I think artists and producers and labels and people like that who are in the studio with creators should be thinking about. I wanted to highlight that point. And so selfish moment is, I remember a few years back, maybe 6 or 7 years back now, put on the Brits, saw Dave come on and perform Black, powerful track in itself. Never mind what he had with the piano and the visuals and the statement he made towards the end of that track. And obviously you also came on stage and performed that with him. For a moment that has stuck with me so strongly. I still go back and watch that video on YouTube now. How was that moment for you? When you think about the cultural impact that's potentially going to have, maybe you didn't think it was going to have a cultural impact. And then when you reflect back on it now, seeing what sort of a moment that was for UK culture, what are your feelings around that?
It's a big question, because I think if I just think of the Brits, I was absolutely, before doing it, I mean, it's another good example of just saying yes to something. And Dave said, do you want to play piano with me on Black, because we'd written it together, and and produced it together. And I was like, of course. And then I thought, a voice said to me, as after I said, of course, went, you never played piano in public before. I was like, okay. So then I had this ridiculous practice schedule where I was literally even practicing. I put the track on in the background when I would actually walk on stage to sit at the seat, just so I got that bit right, and then just practice it. We were practicing it like backstage, me and Dave. We had 2 pianos at my studio, but then backstage playing it double time, because it's one of those things that I felt is so poignant at the moment that one little slip just would have really spoiled it. And I felt that I was there sort of psychologically for Dave, because we'd known each other for so long, since he was 17. And I'd sort of been something of a mentor to Dave, that I really wanted to be there for him. So really, from the performance point of view, it was enough playing the piano like with Dave and sort of reading the situation, but the level of emotion that came out on that last verse, I really had to concentrate, because I could feel like the emotion from the crowd. And no one had really heard what he was going to say, not even me.
Really?
And so I was listening to him, because he'd kept it quiet, just in case there'll be some sort of embargo on TV. And that, it's a very brave thing that he was saying. Then we went into lockdown, and we won an Ivor Novello for that, and couldn't receive it together, so we had to receive it separately and do like a video thing. And reflecting, it felt very bittersweet, because on face value, I'd written this song with Dave, but when you get into what the song is called, and the generosity of Dave to invite me into his world and his culture, was incredibly giving. And to have me on stage, I think that it showed a level of hope of how people can live together. But yet at the same time, we entered into lockdown, and then the terrible George Floyd situation arose, and so therefore Black Lives Matter rose, and within all of that, within the backdrop of George Floyd, we had this track that was getting known, which was a celebration of black culture. And it made me think, well, that feels so positive, and yet at the same time, how is it that we as humans and as white humans can be so unevolved as to feel, or certain members of our society can be filled with so much hatred. And so that upset me.
I remember there have been things the way I've watched on TV about UK culture, about black culture, white culture, and I felt embarrassed to be a white man at times, which is
I relate.
It's profound, especially when you're a fan of. I'm not a fan. You respect black culture. You understand to some extent what you can around black culture, and I think you, having worked with Stormzy, Dave, long list of artists in black culture, how, you're proof that actually you can sit in those spaces, and you can be comfortable in those spaces, and you can help bridge the gap between the understanding of cultures, I think. Have you found that as a responsibility? Do you think of that as a responsibility? Or?
I mean, I would sort of firstly reverse what you said in terms of, like, for me, the privilege is being in a room with any artist. But the fact that artists from different backgrounds who are traditionally have always been younger than me, would have the openness and the courage to come in with someone that has such a different background is huge. So that has been a privilege throughout my career. But my aim has always been to shine a spotlight on these incredible artists through helping elevate the sonics through my background, which is through playing and being part of lots of different types of music, which obviously rap draws from all these different strands. So being able to create something authentic, which maybe certain other producers would be reaching for samples or from sample packs. Like, I'm just feeling like knowing what I could give, and I think that's always really important to me. I feel like if I can't give anything, that would have always been a problem. You know, with Kano, it was playing the guitar, and then how can we make beats together? Kano was making the beats. Like with Stormzy, it was realizing the vision. With Dave, it was helping him realize his vision as well. And so, as long as I feel that I'm being of use, then it feels good.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to be the same as another amazing artist or take anyone's job away. That is, you know, an amazing artist. And I have to say, you know, you said at the very beginning, you know, produced Gangsters and Brats, executive produced, and I was very proud to be working with Suspiro and Swifter Beats and all the huge range of amazing producers on that record, and to bring it all together. So adding and working with those producers on that record. So
love that. And talk to me a little bit about Future Utopia. So, you know, you've gone from being an incredibly esteemed and still an esteemed producer, and now switching into the artist lane a little bit. What was it that sort of incentivized you to do it, or what made you want to go into that artist lane? Was it always something you had your eye on? And what's that been like? What are the key differences between, you know, producer and artist that people should be aware of?
I felt I can get imposter syndrome a lot. You know, I could feel like when I'm working with amazing artists, you know, what is my role? And I step back and I think, no, I have put a lot into that, but then I can sometimes feel like, yeah, but if it was down to me, like, would I be able to write a full song? Would I have the guts to release my own music? So it always, like, I don't want it to sound like it was a test, but I'd also got to the end of like a long run working with Kano, Made on the Manor, and Gangsters and Prayer and Psychodrama, and I felt like I wanted to do something different. I always like to push myself, you know, and I think that evolution is like one of my core values. And so if I'm not being uncomfortable or getting uncomfortable in certain areas, I want to just make sure that I don't just rust. You know, and I think that when you have a certain level of success, you can go through the motions, you could work with similar artists, sort of roll out similar stuff. And I knew that doing Future Utopia would be this huge undertaking that would require a lot, like from me mentally. So we released the first record, which was 12 Questions, which was more philosophical and more of a producer kind of record. Then Kano said to me, who was on that first record, he said, you're either going to love this and want to do more of it, or you're going to love it and go, that was a great thing, I'm going to put the record sort of on the mantelpiece. And I just got the bug, started playing live off the back of COVID, which was just DJing, but DJing the first record. And I worked with some remixers on that, like High and I Jordan, and some amazing producers. And so then reached the second album, and I spoke to my wife and manager Sarah, and she said, look, I really feel like you should be playing more on this second record. So wrote the record Django's High, which is playing, and I really felt like I didn't want this record to be more of the same, of like collaborating. So I took the plunge and started singing, and that was terrifying. People were very kind to me, and I've just made the latest record, which is called Being Human, which is really like worked on my vocals and worked on the lyrics a lot, and worked on like some of the introspective moments and being very honest and making the vocal feel really honest. And it's been a great process, you know, and a terrifying process again, but again, I'm sort of more comfortable being uncomfortable nowadays. You know, I have to just push myself through my career into, you know, by saying yes into all these different situations, and knowing that there's a part of me that whatever I say yes to, I feel like I can probably deal with it as much as it's going to feel tough.
I always find those moments where you feel apprehensive. Like if I'm ever on stage speaking, I'm incredibly anxious beforehand, and then you settle into it, and then afterwards you think that was the best thing. I'm so glad I did that. Is that a similar thing to what you feel when you go on stage and perform in front of, hundreds if not thousands of people now?
Yeah, and you have to deal with the kind of the shadow voices in your head sometimes, don't you? There's lots of shadow voices that are like, why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. Are you too old to be going on stage? Are people going to be laughing at you? Like, what? Are you going to be able to sing in tune? Are you going to, what are people going to think of this? It's incredibly revealing. But I feel like then when I go back into studio with artists, I can feel what that's like. I think there's even more of an empathy, because I might be playing and then an artist might be playing. We may get into the studio and say, I saw you doing this gig. And I feel like being more to the fore and having my own project really helps in that respect. And I think also having something which is completely, you used the word selfish earlier, is a selfish project. It's my thoughts, it's my chords, it's my production, it's my voice. It's all about me and my band. But the core of it is me. And so putting that out is a lovely feeling, because it's something which is absolutely me. And then so I think having that means that then, you said you've got 2 kids, like you will be a better father if you and your partner have that time to go away together, or you have your little thing, whatever that is, where you go and whatever it's, cycle or run or whatever the thing is, listen to music just on your own. It's just for Alex, and then you come back. I think we all need that.
Yeah, you want to be the best version of yourself, and in order to be that, you have to look after yourself.
Exactly.
Do you get more satisfaction from one or the other, the artist or the producer side?
Not really. I think the creative satisfaction of Future Utopia is massive, but then we're in the trenches on it. We haven't built a fan base. We've been going 5 years, and to be fair, like, struggling to sell our venues. We've had years where we've been doing lots of festivals. This year we're doing 3. This is not a sob story, but I'm just saying that we're in the trenches with it. Like, how do we? But it's also quite exciting, because I'm like, well, okay, I can see what's happening here. Like, we're getting less gigs. So how can we make the gigs more exciting? Is there something where I could be talking, I could be breaking down some stems for people? Is it a different thing? Is it not like a traditional gig? Is it more of like a master? Do I bring my studio onto a stage and bring people literally into that environment? Do we do it in studios to help studios which are struggling financially? So sell tickets and give a big proportion of the money to the studios, like how, and I actually find that really exciting. Sometimes when you're at the depths, which in terms of where the project is commercially, we have a lot of people who are incredible supporters, like Six Music and people like yourselves and people from the industry, and people love the music. And people want to stream the music. It does go onto a lot of playlists. People don't really want to come and see the music at this point.
It's fascinating, because I would say, and I'm not just saying this, the show will always stick with me for The Great Escape. I thought the connection you had with the audience, the music sounded great. It was a packed venue. I'm not sure if you remember, it was brilliant. And so, if anyone is listening, they should go and see Future Utopia. And it's an interesting point that I talk about a lot, is when you're time poor, resource poor, or, things aren't going well, that's where innovation comes from. And we talk about this a lot on Hurd, is, okay, we're always time poor, we're resource poor because we're a startup. Let's innovate. Let's time box it and innovate.
It comes to the point where you have to, and I think that's when your back's against the wall, like, what are you going to do? I'm reaching a point of like ever decreasing circles really on the festival circuit in the summer. So I either just, it's that Einstein quote, isn't it? It's like the definition of madness is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. Like, I know that unless something breaks through massively on TikTok, or which I'm not going to count on, let's hope it does, but unless there's something where, like, I don't know, like Tyler the Creator samples one of my songs, and then you get into that thing, which is of course always possible, but I have to have a plan that if that doesn't happen, because I know what's going to happen next year, maybe I wouldn't want to be sitting here going, how's the festivals this year? Well, we have one, so therefore it is about innovation, and I'm looking at it, well, how can I redesign the live experience and invite people into a world that is going to be slightly different to if they went to see Coldplay or Tame Impala.
Yeah.
Nothing against those shows which were incredible, but how can I offer something different?
Yeah.
And so it is innovation.
And what's next for Futuretopia? You said you got a few festivals this year.
Yes. Yeah, so we're going to Switzerland, we're going to Hamburg, we're playing tomorrow night here at the South by Southwest Festival, which I can't wait for. I've got a record coming out, which I don't think I can, because it's not really announced yet, but by one incredible artist and one incredible band,
Okay.
which I'm really excited about. So a collaboration. I've got a song coming out with Yasmin Lacey, who
Great.
I'm incredibly excited about. Loads of writing sessions, going down to Bath, to Real World. Looking forward to my album coming out. My single's coming out, I think, June the 11th, called The Wire. There's just so much in the Future Producer Academy. We're just looking at going into year 2. We're getting the applications through from that, and we're going to be setting sail for year 2, which is incredibly exciting.
Brilliant.
After a very successful year 1.
I love that. And giving back, it's all about giving back now, which I think is something that is a motivator for me, actually, even at an early stage in my career. It's people that motivate me, and I would love to be able to give back in the future. So I think the fact that you're doing that is a great role model for people like me and others who are trying to build something. I think there's a lot of power in that.
No, thank you.
And I got 2 final questions I'd
Come
love
on.
to ask. One is, if you were to start now, start again, fresh, you're a young guy coming into industry. It's a very different industry to when you started, I think. How would you go about starting and building the network and building the career that you have built?
I think I would take social media very seriously from the outset, because I see that. I think if you can build a community, then there's always going to be people that are going to want to listen to what you have to say, and you can build some sort of security through your passion. And I think if you do it right, and I think that then you're not liable to the ups and downs of maybe streaming services or record companies. I think you build something for yourself, an audience. Let's say if you're an artist, or you're a guitar player, or you're a beat maker, and you can put those things out and you have an audience, you build that audience, and it's completely possible. A good friend of mine is Owen Cutts, and he's a great producer, and the way that he's built his Old Music Friday, and through that then his Patreon business, and it's a proper business that he's built through showing people his passion. It's just a great role model for anyone that wants to do that. He's just doing what he wants, and he's headlining Wilderness Festival, DJing, and everything is stemming off of it, which is enabling him to keep doing what he wants to do. So build your audience.
I think that's it. Like you said, in a world where you can build a community, you can build an audience, use those social platforms to do that, and then you can monetize it. Patreon, build your WhatsApp community, whatever it might be. It's almost never been, it's never been harder to cut through the noise, but it's never been easier in terms of access to the tools you need to build those communities.
Absolutely.
So really powerful. And the final thing was a rapid fire round that I put together. Word association.
Oh, okay. Mallet Smallet.
Yeah. And it's artists you've worked with.
Right. I have to be careful here that I don't put my foot in it, or just some mad association that's nothing to do with the artist, but that doesn't doesn't resonate.
Let's try it.
Okay.
Adele.
Virtuoso.
Craig David.
Born to do it.
Stormzy.
Can I just say something though? This isn't going backwards and forwards, because this is you just giving me the...
Sorry, yeah.
No, but if it was the proper thing, you'd have to then be... We'll do that in the next round,
okay,
off thing. Okay. Stormzy.
Yeah.
Loyal.
Dave.
Genius.
Kano.
Visionary.
Albert Woodfox.
Free.
Thank you. That's a great way to end. Thank you,
Great.
Fraser.
Thank you so much.
And if you've listened to this pod, feel free to follow and also go and check out Fraser and Future Utopia as well.
Please.
Cheers, Fraser. Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Thank you.